This $17 device mounts on your car and blows air colder than your AC. No compressor, no refrigerant, no connection to your engine, just moving air and water. It was sold on American cars for nearly 30 years. Then it vanished so completely that most drivers today have never seen one. It's called an evaporative car cooler. By the end, you'll know how it works and how to build your own. Let's dive in. Right now, a compressor repair costs $800 to $1,200. A full AC replacement runs up to $4,000. And even a perfect system taxes you every mile. The EPA's own testing shows AC can cut your fuel economy by more than 25%. 1 out of every 4 gallons you buy, burned just to spin a compressor. And your AC leaks by design. Seals dry out, refrigerant escapes, 10 to 15% every few years, even in a healthy system. Pressure drops, you pay for a recharge. The compressor runs dry, it grinds itself apart, and you pay retail for a new one. That is not climate control. That is a subscription plan bolted to your engine. And it does nothing for your car's worst thermal problem, the parked car. Left in summer sun, your cabin hits 140 to 170 degrees. Your AC can't help. It only exists when your engine is running. The moment you park, you surrender the cabin to the sun. But there is a device that cools a car, using no fuel at all. The physics behind it predates the automobile itself, and when you see what it cost in 1949, you will understand why no automaker sells one today. The mechanism is called evaporative cooling, and you have felt it every day of your life. Step out of a swimming pool into a breeze, and your skin goes cold, even in summer. That chill is not the air, it is the water leaving your skin. When liquid water turns into vapor, it absorbs an enormous amount of heat energy from whatever it is touching. Chemists call this the latent heat of vaporization, meaning the hidden energy required to change water from liquid to gas. And the number is staggering. Evaporating a single kilogram of water absorbs roughly 2,260 kilojoules of heat. That is more than 5 times the energy it takes to heat that same water from freezing to boiling. An evaporative car cooler is a metal or plastic cylinder that mounts in your window or on your roof, facing forward. Inside is a pad or a wick sitting in a small water reservoir. As you drive, ram air, meaning air forced in by the motion of the vehicle itself, blasts through the wet pad. The water evaporates. The heat for that evaporation is pulled directly out of the passing air. The air that exits into your cabin is measurably colder than the air that entered. In dry climates, the temperature drop is 15 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. No compressor, no electricity, no moving parts, except the car itself. 1 quart of water lasts roughly 100 to 150 miles of driving. Refilling it costs nothing. And unlike your AC compressor, which steals 5 to 10 horsepower from your engine every second it runs, an evaporative cooler steals nothing. The vehicle was already pushing air out of its way. The cooler simply borrows that air on the way past. Now scale the idea. Add a $10 12-volt solar fan to the same wet pad design, and the device no longer needs the car to be moving. It cools a parked vehicle, all day, powered by the same sunlight that is trying to heat it. Add a simple roof turbine vent, and hot cabin air is exhausted continuously, while cooler air is drawn in low. None of it requires a single part from the automotive climate control industry, and that fact alone tells you why you have never been told about it. But if you think this is new, you are off by about 2,000 years. In the desert city of Yazd, Iran, buildings have been cooled without electricity for centuries, using tall chimney-like towers called wind catchers, badgurs in Persian. These towers capture moving air high above the street, channel it down through the structure, and in many designs pass it over water channels or wet surfaces before releasing it into living spaces. The result is indoor air substantially cooler than the desert outside, achieved with zero fuel and zero machinery. In 2017, UNESCO inscribed the historic city of Yazd as a World Heritage Site, citing this exact architecture. The technology is not folklore, it is engineering, refined over centuries, in one of the hottest inhabited regions on Earth. The same principle crossed into the American automobile in the 1930s. Companies like Thermador in Los Angeles manufactured window-mounted evaporative car coolers, cylindrical units that hooked over the passenger window glass, scooped ram air through a water-soaked pad, and poured cool air across the cabin. Drivers crossing the Mojave on Route 66 hung them on their doors the way we mount phone holders today. Through the 1940s and 1950s, these swamp coolers were sold in auto parts stores, gas stations, and mail-order catalogs across the American Southwest. For families crossing the desert before automotive air conditioning existed, this was not a novelty. It was survival equipment. And here is what it was competing against. In 1939, Packard became the first automaker to offer factory air conditioning. The option cost $274, at a time when an entire new car could be had for under $1,000. The system filled most of the trunk. It had no thermostat. To turn it off, the driver had to stop the car and remove a belt from the compressor. Meanwhile, the evaporative cooler on the family sedan next to it cost a few dollars, weighed a few pounds, and asked only for a quart of water. The refrigerant system won anyway. Not because it was cheaper, not because it was simpler, because it worked everywhere, including humid states, and because it created something the swamp cooler never could: a supply chain, compressors, condensers, refrigerant, certified technicians, recharge services, replacement parts, an entire recurring revenue industry, bolted permanently to the engine of every car in America. By the 1970s, the evaporative car cooler had disappeared from shelves so completely that today they survive mainly as curiosities at classic car shows, polished and mounted on restored Chevys by collectors who often have no idea the device actually works. Now, if you are thinking this sounds like a relic that could never matter in the modern world, consider what researchers keep rediscovering every time they study it. Evaporative cooling remains one of the most energy-efficient cooling methods known to engineering. It is why data centers use evaporative systems to cool server farms. It is why stadiums in desert nations pass air over water before it reaches spectators. It is why greenhouse operators in hot climates rely on wet pad and fan walls rather than refrigeration. The physics did not stop working when the automotive industry stopped selling it. Industrial engineers simply kept using it where nobody was watching, and the parked car problem has quietly produced its own modern market. 12-volt solar-powered exhaust fans. Small units that sit on a window or roof and vent superheated cabin air all day sell for $15 to $25. Independent testing consistently shows meaningful reductions in parked cabin temperature, achieved with zero fuel, zero battery drain, and zero moving parts beyond a small fan spun by sunlight. So if this technology is ancient, proven, and cheap, why does it not appear in a single new car brochure, a single dealership options list, a single automotive service menu? Because the system was never designed to accommodate something you can build for $17. An evaporative cooler generates no service appointment. It requires no certified refrigerant handler, no EPA Section 609 license, no recovery machine, no recharge. It creates no recurring revenue stream for any party at any point in the automotive supply chain. A wet pad and a scoop of moving air cannot be patented into exclusivity, cannot be dealer serviced, and cannot fail expensively enough to justify a repair department. From the perspective of the automotive climate industry, the evaporative cooler is not a competitor. It is a non-entity. It does not fit into the financial architecture, and therefore it does not exist within the sales architecture. No one conspired to suppress it. The modern automotive market was simply written for products that scale, products with part numbers, service intervals, warranty structures, and certified installers. A cylinder of wet fiber hanging on your window clears none of those gates, and so it vanished. Not banned, just never seen. Now, if you are thinking evaporative cooling cannot possibly compete with real air conditioning, stop, because you are half right, and the half you are wrong about is the half that matters. Head-to-head at highway speed. In Houston humidity, refrigerant AC wins on raw temperature drop. Nobody serious disputes that. But measure the contest across everything that actually costs you money and comfort, and the picture inverts. Purchase cost. The cooler wins by a factor of 100. Fuel consumption, the cooler wins absolutely, because it uses none. Cooling a parked car, the cooler wins by default, because your AC cannot even enter that event. Maintenance cost over 10 years, the cooler asks for water and an occasional pad. Your AC asks for recharges, seals, and eventually a compressor. 5 separate contests, 5 wins. That is what the numbers actually say when you stop measuring only the one contest the industry wants you to measure. If you want to start cutting your fuel and repair costs today, we put together a full manual that covers everything in this video and more. The link is in the description below. Here is how you build one. You need 4 materials. First, a container, a 4-inch to 6-inch plastic or aluminum duct section, or a cylindrical food container costs $3 to $5 at any hardware store. This is your body. Mount it facing forward on a roof rack crossbar or in the top gap of a partially opened window, angled to catch oncoming air. Second, the pad. A sheet of aspen or cellulose evaporative cooler pad material, the same material sold for home swamp coolers, costs $5 to $7 and will cut into a dozen replacement pads. Third, a wick and reservoir. A small plastic bottle and a strip of cotton material, $1 to $2, feeds water continuously to the base of the pad. Fourth, ducting. A length of flexible 3-inch duct or dryer hose, $3 to $4, routes the cooled air through the window gap and into the cabin. Total build comes in under $17 at current retail prices. Cut the pad to fit snugly inside the duct so that all incoming air must pass through it, not around it. Seat the wick so it touches both the water reservoir and the bottom edge of the pad. Fill the reservoir. Drive. Air rams through the wet pad, sheds its heat to the evaporating water, and exits into your cabin cooler than it entered. Check the outlet with a basic $10 thermometer. In dry air, you should see a drop of 15 degrees or more between intake and outlet. For a parked car version, replace ram air with a $10 solar fan mounted at the intake, and crack a window on the shaded side so hot air has somewhere to leave. One critical warning: do not use this system in high humidity, and do not run it with the cabin sealed shut. Evaporative cooling adds moisture to the air. In dry climates, that moisture is welcome. In humid climates, it stops the evaporation, kills the cooling, and fogs your glass. Always leave an exhaust path, a cracked window opposite the intake, so moist air flows through the cabin and out, not in circles. There are real limits, and you should know them. This device will not outcool a working refrigerant system in Florida in August. It performs best below roughly 40% relative humidity, which is why it ruled the Southwest and never conquered the South. The pad needs rinsing to prevent mineral buildup, and replacing every season or two. The water needs refilling on long drives, and this is not a plug-and-play product. There is no instruction manual, no app, no customer support line. You are building a cooling device from raw materials. That requires a thermometer, a utility knife, and a willingness to experiment. The evaporative car cooler is a 90-year-old answer to a question the modern automotive industry stopped asking. It does not replace your AC in a rainforest, and it does not pretend to. But for the cost of a fast food dinner, it gives you cold air that burns no fuel, cools your car even while it sits parked in the sun, and runs on the same physics that cooled Persian cities before the compressor was ever imagined. A lot of what this channel covers was nearly lost, not because it stopped working, but because the system was never designed to accommodate something that does not generate a service invoice. If discovering the lost science of self-sufficiency matters to you, subscribing and sharing is the simplest way to make sure this kind of knowledge keeps being found. If you had $17 and a hot summer commute, would you build an evaporative cooler and drive with free cold air? Or would you keep feeding a compressor that eats a quarter of your fuel? I'd genuinely like to know. Drop it in the comments.